All right, good afternoon and welcome back, respected guests and audience. We now have a panel discussion on Afghanistan today, heritage, art, and women. Participating in the discussion are, we have France Marquet, Principal Trustee of Madanjeet Singh Foundation, representative of South Asia Foundation to UNESCO. We also have Kubra Khademi, a renowned Afghan performance artist who received the prestigious Order of Arts and Letters title, and also Khushi Kabir, coordinator, Nijera, Kori, and Vice President of South Asia Foundation Bangladesh chapter. The panel discussion will be moderated by Dr. Touseef Osman, Research Fellow, Department of English and Humanities, University of Liberal Arts, Bangladesh. May I please request Dr. Osman to introduce the panel discussants and begin the discussion, please.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nadia Rahman. It's my distinct pleasure to welcome Madame France Marquet from Paris and Kubra Khademi from Paris and Khushi Kabir ma'am who's in Bangladesh. It's afternoon in Bangladesh and morning in Paris, so a very good morning and a good afternoon to you all. We have, as I said already, a very distinguished panel today. The three panelists are each known for their work. So our first panelist is Madame France Marquet, who's a Principal Trustee of Madanjeet Singh Foundation. Also, she is the representative of South Asia Foundation to UNESCO. Madame France Marquet is, if you look at her life's work, you will see that she has been always dedicated to organization building, especially educational organizations. Most importantly, the South Asian Foundation, which has established institutes all across South Asia in all 8 countries in the areas of education, heritage, arts, and all of those things. So that's it's our pleasure to have her here. And most importantly, the institute that the Madanjeet Singh Foundation has established, South Asia Foundation has established in Afghanistan, which is Madanjeet Singh Institute for Afghanistan's Cultural Heritage. This was established after the Bamiyan Buddha destruction and Ambassador, UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador Madanjeet Singh's pledging of $1 million to the cause of Afghan heritage and culture. So I would like Madame France Marquet to speak on Afghanistan's heritage and especially about her involvement in Afghanistan's culture and heritage preservation. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yes, I'm not an academic, so thank you for this introduction. Good morning, good afternoon. I would like to thank the University of Liberal Arts, Bangladesh, and its acting Vice Chancellor, Professor Shamshad Murtaza, for inviting me to participate in this conference. Mr. Khan's intervention in this invitation is not fortuitous, since, if I am not mistaken, he was a beneficiary of our scholarship in our Institute for Kashmiri Studies in Srinagar. But I cannot start talking about Afghanistan heritage without giving a snapshot of the foundation. South Asia Foundation is the idea of a man, UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador Madanjeet Singh, son of the partition of the subcontinent and saved when he was running away of the new created Pakistan by a Muslim Tongawala. This horrific vision stayed with him all his life, and he wanted to do something to bring together youngsters of the region to live and exchange during their studies. For that purpose, he established at the beginning of the century, with the help of eminent people, 8 independent chapters in the SAARC countries. It is at that time that I had the honor of meeting Khushi Kabir. Then came 8 institutes or centers affiliated to university, public and private, in different disciplines. In Bangladesh, thanks to the first South Asia Foundation chairperson, Dr. Kamal Hussain, the UNESCO Madanjeet Singh South Asian Institute of Advanced Legal and Human Rights Studies was launched in 2006. It is located now in the University of Asia Pacific, thanks to the then Vice Chancellor, the late Dr. Jamilur Raza Chaudhary. We, as a foundation, have been working with the Afghan government essentially in the field of education through 2 main channels. First, the UNESCO Madanjeet Singh Center for Preservation of the Afghan Cultural Heritage, and secondly, through South Asia Foundation Afghanistan, giving scholarship to students, girls and boys, to continue their higher education in one of our institutes in South Asia. But I would like to quote Ambassador Singh, and he wrote, "The history and culture of Afghanistan are profoundly interwoven with South Asia. When the Taliban regime destroyed the colossal 5th century Bamiyan Buddhas and other priceless works of Afghanistan art, the South Asia Foundation pledged a contribution of $1 million at the first plenary session of the International Committee for the Safeguarding of Afghanistan Cultural Heritage. This meeting, held in Paris on 16 June 2003, was attended by the UNESCO Director General at that time, Mr. Koichiro Matsura, Afghanistan's Minister of Information and Culture, Dr. Saeed Makhdoom Raheen, and of course, Ambassador Singh. On his return to Kabul, Dr. Saeed Makhdoom Raheen conveyed the decision to the President Hamid Karzai. We were then invited to visit Bamiyan and Kabul, and after a meeting with the President and the King Zahir Shah, who was still alive, it was decided that the government will lend us a bombed-out international press building built by the Russian. It was restored, and the pledge signed at UNESCO materialized as the UNESCO Madanjeet Singh Center for the Preservation of Afghan's Cultural Heritage. The institute was inaugurated on 13 July 2006, and UNESCO assigned 2 experts, Dr. Tej Singh, retired director of the National Research Laboratory of Conservation of Cultural Property in Lucknow, India, and Mr. Robert Knox of the British Museum, London, to visit Kabul and submit a report on the Institute's administration. The Institute served essentially to train officials from the different provinces of Afghanistan on their heritage. Also raised teachers' awareness about the beautiful things not only in Kabul, but all in Afghanistan. Some workshops took place in different regions, especially in Bamiyan, when it became cultural capital of South Asia for a year. It has also been the site of exhibition by women artists. Yesterday, for example, during the round table, somebody was talking about the Afghan gardens. We have a beautiful example in New Delhi with the Lodi Gardens. That leads us to the question also raised yesterday, whether Afghanistan belongs to the Central or Southern Asia. Well, up to now, it is still a member of SAARC, but for political reasons, it may change. Some exchanges were possible, like when we invited women artists from Afghanistan to participate in an exhibition in Srinagar. Well, we don't have the picture, but it's not a problem. It was in the University of Kashmir, and there was Dr. Raheen, there was Mrs. Ghazanfar, Women's Affairs Minister, and Mr. Amin Afzal, advisor to the president on child's rights. In 2008, Dr. Saeed Makhdoom Raheen resigned from his post as a chairman of SAF Afghanistan and introduced Mr. Omara Khan Masood, previous head of the National Museum of Kabul, as the new chairman of SAF Afghanistan chapter, with Hamidullah Arifi as vice-chairperson. For security reasons, we were not able to invite South Asian students, but at the same time, Afghans were able to benefit from the fully paid scholarships taking care of gender parity to go to study master degrees in other SAARC countries. Like, for example, journalism in Chennai, India, regional cooperation in Puducherry, India, green technology in Puducherry, India, water management in Sri Lanka, forestry in Bhutan, and visual arts in Lahore, Pakistan. But my friend Kubra Khademi will be able to tell you more about it. More than 100 students were graduated, and most of them returned to their country. Many served in different ministries, and now, with the new regime, they fear for their lives. With no salaries, they live in hiding. We receive each day desperate emails, but their evacuation is very difficult for the moment. The press tend to compare the evacuation of Kabul to the evacuation of Saigon, but there's a huge difference. The evacuation of Saigon, the Vietnamese people were free to go. There was no plane, but they were free to go. In Kabul, there's a witch hunt going on, and they let very small number of people to be evacuated. I would like to emphasize the role of civil society in all this conflict. We should support people who continue to fight for their rights and values and don't give up. It is one of the reasons why UNESCO established in 1995 the UNESCO Madanjeet Singh Prize for the promotion of tolerance and nonviolence. We are going to celebrate in 2022 the 24th prize. I feel very humble to have spoken to you in front of an impressive array of scholars and students. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Madam Foss, for your enlightening overview of the activities of South Asia Foundation, how South Asia Foundation got involved in Afghanistan and the heritage of Afghanistan, the preservation of the heritage of Afghanistan. You also mentioned the contribution of UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador Madanjeet Singh in some details, and I was looking at his some of his books that he has written, and I have seen that from the very early age, from the very beginning of his career, actually, he has been writing books on arts, tradition, especially the preservation of arts, all those things. So he had this interest in heritage preservation, and he had this interest in arts, which South Asia Foundation is still continuing today, which is very fortunate of us. As you already mentioned, I am a direct beneficiary, which I wanted to say at the very end, of South Asia Foundation's generosity, the scholarships that they give, and the promotion of regional cooperation through movements of South Asian students in different institutes that South Asia Foundation has built. Thank you so much. We have here our second panelist. We are going to come back to our question and answer session at the very end. We are right now here to welcome artist Kubra Khademi, who's mostly a performance artist. Kubra she's a performance artist, and she is based in France, Paris. She studied fine arts at Kabul University before attending the Beacon House National University in Lahore, Pakistan, on a scholarship from South Asia Foundation. So in Lahore, she began to create public performances, a practice she continued upon her return to Kabul, where her work actively responded to the society dominated by extreme patriarchal politics. After performing her piece, Armor, in 2015, Khademi was forced to flee Afghanistan due to the fatwa and death threats. She is currently, as we have already said, living in Paris. And I mean, she has wonderful performances which are noted around the world. So like Eternal Trial, Armor, these are some notable works that she has done. She's also the recipient of the Order of Arts and Letters by the French Ministry of Culture. Kubra will be talking to us about the future of Afghan arts and artists. And also, she was recently involved in the evacuation process of some Afghan artists. So if she can talk a little bit about that as well. Kubra, I welcome you.
Thank you very much, Touseef. Thanks, France, and others who are present here. Good morning from Paris. Well, I thank you for the introduction, Khan, and well, to give a little bit of like insight about about arts, women, and the future of arts in Afghanistan. It is hard, so I have to always give a little bit of context, my own work, artistic work, as so much inspired by the identity, and also which is like in general it's about identity, but how it's been giving, how I am giving forward to it. It's so much is dealing with like current history, like contemporary history of Afghanistan. Of course, it's like political or geopolitical issues are very much are playing a big role. But how to be an artist, how to become an artist, how to imagine to be an artist, I think it was also so much like possible during after 2001, because like in that time, like after 9/11, which is like a new chapter start like opening in Afghanistan, and was affecting a lot like everybody's life. It was like, I think you remember, it was possible for me to imagine I can study, I can go to university, I can start like academic like study of art inside Afghanistan. On that time, it was like Taliban time. We were, my family were immigrant in Pakistan, in Quetta, Pakistan. That before that, during Soviet war, where I was born, my family were in Iran. So it's like being immigrant woman, and also like these two factors are like like a lot visible in my work. So those time, just again being back, after 2001, schools and universities were open to girls. So I do belong to a generation who are like imagining our dreams are becoming like true. So so I was someone like who was like making from childhood, making a lot of drawings, imagining myself an artist, like claiming also I'm an artist. So those time I do remember I was just looking at my suitcase and is imagining I have to go to Kabul, I have to go to university, and thanks to that, this was to those time it was possible. So 2008 I entered to Kabul University through because we have annual exam of concours that we enter to universities, and I studied. I made it, and I become I entered to Kabul University. So on those times, but entering to Kabul University and studying fine arts was not something I was expecting, because like I wanted contemporary art, and that was not there. So I started like looking what's other possibility, what I can go, and I figured out like after 2001. A lot of scholarships were coming to Afghanistan, a lot of offers, and so I looked up, and I was looking up, and from like a UMISA scholarship that I was I studied after. I have to say I had the chance to study and obtain that. I got it during the first year of university, and 2009 I entered to Beacon House National University of Lahore through UMISA scholarship that opened up a there. So I found like what I was looking for, and that was there. So this was like under a system of education where I was able to think beyond. So so there I start like making performances and other mediums of art that I was not aware, but like I was just I was allowed, and I was like to express myself. Coming back to like geopolitics and war and its consequences on identity that becomes more visible in my work. I explore and being a woman, or again, which is targeted like in daily basis in from like, let's say, from family to this I mean society in Afghanistan, of course. It was like I was targeted by patriarchy, was something that was getting more and more in my work. So again, like making work, living like between Lahore and Kabul all the time, and coming back to like after I was graduated, I started like living professionally as an artist in Kabul was something that I have been always dreaming. And that I built, like I made my studio. I was making the works that the way I'm trained, and I am like just making what I want to make, and exploring and expressing myself through my art was something that I saw that it's like the more it is getting formed, the more it's like the more like how I was also feeling, the more how I am taking part in society, how I am like other generation of who have my age, how we are for the first time, how we are thinking we are part of rebuilding our country. Because after 2001, like I say that universities were open, the country was not an ideal country, especially for my generation who are thinking that country is ours. Country has passed like it was like a country who was passed through different phases of conflict. So it was not like really ready and open. The universities were open, but how to build it, it was in our hand. So I had this mixed feeling of like through my art, I am someone who is like taking part in rebuilding of the country. I exist, I am here, especially I'm having a voice. So it was like having this ideal image, and then like being in the middle of it was, I think, something like overwhelming, needed a lot of work. And so it was like, it was for me like a huge like achievement in a way. But again, coming back to my work and how I practicing it, how it was like getting form and becoming more and more. So one of my work, as Touseef Khan has like mentioned it, like it was a performance wall, which is called Armor, and how it's called, it is a piece of armor that I'm wearing it. It was like one of the works that I criticized, and how I interrogate into the society where I lived, and when I was living, and which was like responding to culture of sexual harassment in the public space, where it was happening also, the performance in the public space. The consequences after that was shockingly didn't perceived well in my country, and that caused me first imagine, and then was unbelievably, it was not possible to live in my country anymore. And again, thanks to UMISA, and it's the family of UMISA, and that I was lucky to remain alive, and few days, less than a month after that, I arrived to France in the middle of like huge shock. That how is it possible? As I said, still I said, I was imagining, was practicing being part of, the change and rebuilding of my country, who had a voice, who has, I still have a voice, but who had a voice. Then, yeah. And coming here, I'm like every day I'm working, I'm making art, still performances, but I'm still like practicing the liberty I have here. And of course, nobody is killing me. So like firstly imagining this is like something who, and beside this, here is like, how can I say, culture and art is like alive, and you can, it's like I'm working daily every day, and that's something like that is something I was imagining and I was dreaming to have in my own country, and I'm showing worldwide, in the world, my works, either performances or visual works. And as Touseef Khan said, still like dealing with my geopolitical, still political like conflict of my own like home country. So we saw that in summer, like in a very unbelievably and unimaginably, how Taliban were like increasing to their territory, and how they were moving. Like first I got like very much worried for Afghan women, because we lived through past time in through Taliban like regime, and we knew that something, women cannot live, women cannot be considered as human. So that was like I start like talking around, and like talking to my the network I have here, the people I worked with, the venues, the institutions here, and so I was in the middle of like walking and struggling to what will happen, what we have to talk, what we should not let. But behind, I was thinking, it will not happen, or it will not. It will not happen by me. Taliban will not arrive to presidential palace this way that they have done. In the morning, they were in the behind the doors, and afternoon, like they were there. I mean, that's something out of like everybody's imagination. Of course, Taliban themselves were not ready for this big. Well, I don't call it victory because they are not. They haven't won anything, but they have instead they have been given this chance and this this chance, yeah. Well, as they were growing and like going near to Kabul, I said that, okay, what is more necessary? Like saving the entire Afghanistan Afghan woman is like, okay, why? Who is more in danger? Well, like artists, female artists, women artists, and so I talked with my producer. I told her that, look, this is something really, really urgent. There's something has to be done, and we did. We put that, and we start like talking into different partners and institutions in France, and I would say now culture was very strong, and they couldn't convince and tell our president, like in France, that this artist should come out. And then, well, we were preparing that 15th of August. Well, just everything just got like in an extreme urgent way, and then even the artist came out without passport, without any visa. That we were in the process of like obtaining them, and after which the last French plan in evening of 27 August, our artist came out. And there were like nearly 80 artists that right now they reside in France. These days, they are even getting their asylum, and they are refugee. The process of asylum are like accelerated through through an evacuation process. But right now, I think I'm feeling that the horror is starting for me, that what will happen? Okay, few lives are out. Well, they're like, they will express themselves. They will make art. They are going to be voices that they will raise for Afghanistan. But what will happen to Afghanistan? What will happen to those children? Are they going? I'm really with this question. Are they going to be the future Taliban? Are they going to be like these countries? Is this going to be, or is this happening that is going to be the factory of Taliban terrorists? And this question is devastating, much more beyond this. Hunger is happening in Afghanistan today. Like culture, okay, of course, art and culture cannot exist in Afghanistan. There is no question. That at least I can assure the world that no, that cannot exist. But now somehow it will exist through some number of people outside. But what will happen to this country? This question is like yeah.
Thank you so much.
I think I will continue in the question and answer part. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Kubra, for drawing on your personal experiences, also talking about the plights of Afghan artists and what will happen to the arts, literature, fine arts in Afghanistan. This is a question that we have, especially the artists who are also women. The intersectionality of the problem, that is a huge issue that we have. And I mean, continuing from your discussion, we have Ms. Khushi Kabir with us here, who's going to talk specifically on the women's issue. And as we all know that Khushi Kabir is a coordinator, Nijera Kori, and she is the Vice-Chairperson of South Asia Foundation, the chapter of Bangladesh. And Khushi Kabir, as you know, that she's a renowned human rights activist. She studied at the University of Dhaka in the Faculty of Fine Arts. She has engaged herself in human rights activism in Bangladesh, in South Asia for a very long time. She has involved herself in organizations like Nijera Kori, Then she is the member of International Chittagong Hill Tracts Commission, and she's also the person who initiated, one of the people who initiated the 1 Billion Rising project. So I requested Ms. Khushi Kabir specifically to talk about a little bit about Kamla Bhasin, who's our great feminist icon of South Asia, and she has very unfortunately passed away very recently in 25th of September. And for us in South Asia, this is something to be very sad about. And I would like Khushi ma'am to sort of remember her and then talk about women in Afghanistan for a bit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Touseef Osman, for the introduction. I'd like to thank ULAB, University of Liberal Arts, Bangladesh, the Department of English and Humanities, for organizing this. And I like that the title of today's the discussion of these 2 days discussion, from Kabuliwala to the fall of Kabul. For me, I would like to first begin with talking and paying my expressing my deep love to Kamla Bhasin, who was really the main person who took me out of Bangladesh and made me more a South Asian. So I give myself a South Asian identity, and through which I have now, as a feminist, being part of a global feminist identity too. And on the day she died, on the 25th of September, the 1 Billion Rising campaign, which is a campaign that was started in 2013 to fight, the theme is until the violence stops, because UN statistics have said 1 in 3 women in the world are victims of violence. And if there are about 7 billion people in the earth, then if 1 in 3 are victims of violence, if we have, say, half the population of 7 billion as women, then we have 3.5 billion women in this earth. And so we have a minimum of 1 billion people, women, who get violated in this world. And so if the rising of 1 billion women could begin, and men also who believe in the same issues, then maybe the world would change. Maybe what Kubra was describing, I was listening to you so with fascination, because you live in and lived during trying times when you thought you could be able to do work, times when you found that when you spoke that you had to leave the country, times when you felt that you wanted to express yourself and yet you were not allowed to because of systems. And then in the end, on the 15th of August, the way the Taliban took over, it just seemed like, is that the end? So on the 25th of September, globally, all over the world, 1 Billion Rising stood in sorrow, rose in solidarity with the women of Afghanistan. And that was the morning that Kamla left her body. And so we did not stop our movement and rising for the women of Afghanistan with people across the world. So we put a picture of Kamla who can inspire us. So Kamla was an inspiration to, I think, anybody who's had the opportunity. And through her, I've met a lot of Afghani women because she did a 1-month course on feminist concepts, peace, etc., understanding feminism, understanding patriarchy, understanding the social society as it works. And we always had Afghani participants. And just before Kamla realized she was ill, I think she was beginning to feel that she wasn't too well. She died of cancer. It was just a 3 months period that she knew she had cancer, and 3 months later, to the day she left. So, but just before that, she said she was wanting to step down from her role as the advisor to Sangat, which is a South Asian feminist network. And she wanted me to take over. So I was persuaded to take over. So after August 15, I wrote to all the alumni of all the courses who attended the Sangat courses to ask how they were. The ones who managed to get outside of Afghanistan did write to me. They are in contact, they have families in Kabul. And what they wrote made it even more poignant and more clear that what is happening is something that I don't know why, as the world and the world leaders talk about it, but they sit and allow it to happen. And that is what pains me the most. I think when we talk about the issue today, heritage, art, and women, they're all very interrelated. And Afghanistan is a place which has a strong history of all three. And yet, the world is allowing and sitting back and keeping quiet. And keeping quiet means that you are supporting in many ways the destruction of something that was going to be strong, beautiful, and very creative. And this is what I believe in, and this is, for me, what Kamla stands for. And we continue, and we all pledge to continue, all of us who are Kamla's friends and people who worked with her, pledge to continue this work. So with this work, the friends I've had in Afghanistan are through Kamla. So I just thought I have a few testimonies from women in Afghanistan who are still in Afghanistan who wrote to us. So I'll read a few of the testimonies to give an idea of what the situation is. But before, I just want to say that for most people now, Afghanistan means the Taliban, means repression, means women in burqas, means women do not have the freedom to be what they are. Afghanistan has a rich culture and history. And that rich culture and history has now been, if you ask the average citizen now, what does Kabul and Afghanistan signify to you? It would be, the Taliban. Unfortunately, everybody has allowed the Taliban to take over the identity of this very rich nation called Afghanistan. Rich both culturally and in heritage, and I'm not just going to say rich in having natural resources. And I think what Kubra has brought out showed what women in Afghanistan actually are, that they have the ability to resist, to create resistance, to create alternatives. A lot of people who are watching here could go to YouTube and see, or not to YouTube, to Google or to any of the Facebook pages, etc., and see. There's this iconic painting of a whole group of women in burqas with the backs turned. And it's the whole burqa that they, in Afghanistan, that they do wear, which is covered right from the top. And in that, there is one woman who's turned around and she's facing the front with her face uncovered, holding a book, holding books, which shows she's for education. That is such a powerful picture. That one woman turning around, for me, meant that all the women will eventually turn around. So that one woman turning around, that picture of that one woman turning around signifies that women will turn around. And we really hope, Kubra, that Afghanistan will revert back to what it really means, to the people, what it really means. You know, the creation of the Mujahideen, the creation of the Taliban, everything is something that was politically determined. And when, you know, the events of 11th September 2001, the demolition of the Twin Towers, I know it's popularly called 9/11, but we don't say September 11, we usually write 11/9, so I would like to say the 11th of September, when the Twin Towers were broken down. Why was Afghanistan targeted as something that the Americans and the British and the others should take over? Why were not Afghanis themselves allowed to decide for themselves what their fate and how they want their governance to be like? Because what it showed, that if they came to show that they were doing it for the people of Afghanistan, their 15th of August 2021 showed that that was not the case at all. I'll be very quick now. I'll just read some of the things. I felt very important that we wanted to say that even in 1964, when the Constitution gave equal rights to Afghani women, and then in 2009, it was given back the rights, which was taken away in the 90s by the Taliban. And now everything is suspended. So I'll just read out so that people understand. Here are a few. This is Fatima. My name is Fatima Husseini. On the first day when the Taliban entered Kabul, my children were outside. There was a lot of noise among people and everyone got terrified by coming of Taliban. I was very worried and was going outside and coming in frequently. Finally, my children came one after the other. I felt that maybe my children had been abducted by the Taliban. I could feel how fear took over all of my body. I attended school before the Taliban, and this year I was in the 6th grade. Now we are deprived of education. I also went to a gym for 6 years. I was a trainer in the gym. Now I'm out of everything, staying at home. My husband is also jobless and stays at home. We don't know what God will do with our destiny. We're all worried about our future. People are afraid of the Taliban as they hit many people. Many of us do not leave the house and we are all worried. And even though the Taliban say they won't harm us, we have very terrible memories of the first regime. They are dangerous. We are very frightened and do not think that the Taliban have changed at all. Laluma works with the Ministry of Public Works. She does not have a caretaker. Husband was killed. Her son was also killed 2.5 years back. Now she sits in a corner of the house since the arrival of the Taliban. No salary, no subsistence. I wonder what to do for the household expenses. I have no idea. I lost my husband. I lost my son. Nobody reached out to me. I've become a stay-at-home, idle, and desperate. What is to be done? I can't do nothing. It's myself and my daughter and my nephew in this house. Useless. I don't know what else to do. It's been 23 years since my husband's martyrdom and 2.5 years since my son's. During these years, I was working in the ministry and providing everything for my family. Now that the Taliban have come, I stay around the house. We do not have a caretaker nor someone to give a helping hand except God. We have no other option. I was the only breadwinner. Nargis was studying at the National Afghan Institute of Music. She says, I just finished the 11th grade and it's been 8 years that I'm a guitarist. And the day the Taliban came to Kabul and came inside our school, we were practicing there that day and we rapidly got out. They are still there and consider music haram, unlawful. They stay there day and night, all of them. They have broken all the music instruments in the school. To raise a voice, the women started protesting for the rights of women, for the voice of women. We participated too. And women will never be caged again in houses and will never waste their many years of effort. They will break out and rally in the streets and raise their voices from the women all over the world. women who are devoted to the rights and voices of other women. We want them to fight alongside the women of Afghanistan. So this is a message to all of us. I'll just give two short other descriptions. Nuria is a gynecologist in one of the hospitals in Kabul city. When Taliban entered Kabul, we were busy with work in the hospital, sincerely serving the people. Suddenly there were strange noises. People were very scared. Everyone started to rush into the hospital. People were afraid that the Taliban would enter the hospital. It was the day that darkness took over Afghanistan, affecting all the people of Afghanistan, especially women. Therefore, Kabul died. Kabul was turned off. The sound of everything muted and nobody left their houses. For 2 or 3 days and even a week. Me personally, because I used to work in a women's hospital and have always served treating women as well as being active in women's advocacy associations, I worked with women to fight violence. So I was very scared. Till now, I walk out of the house in fear because I'm afraid they may harm me. The fact that the Taliban act towards women badly, they do not think women are human beings, they do not want women to leave the house, let alone women like me and our colleagues who work for women. I think if the Taliban know what we are doing, they will take our lives. Because of this, life has become difficult. I have had interviews with private TV channels. Therefore, I have a familiar face, and this has become a threat for me. I also participated in women's protests. We urge women who work in social institutions and have a more open hand to not leave us alone. Support the achievements of Afghan women. Let us not repeat history, same as in the past, and imprison women inside the walls of houses and deprive them of their basic rights to live. We ask the people of all countries to help us and do not let our voices be silent. So there are more. There is Rokhaya, who was a government official and also a journalist. She's traveled all over Afghanistan, interviewed various women about their lives, their life conditions, women who've been deprived of literacy and education, what their safety and security is actually. And she's published in the Haftaname Kabul. After the Taliban came, the life has changed completely, turned to zero. I couldn't continue my work in the government because my job was to do surveys and conduct research projects and travel to countryside provinces that I cannot go to now. And being a journalist, I cannot write anything now. The columns I want to write, I cannot, because the Taliban will threaten journalists. As you witnessed yourself, the journalists were beaten and tortured. I neither work nor do I write. I did participate in the protest. The only reason, as I stated earlier, was that I don't want my family to be worried because of me. And my requisition from the women of the world is to demonstrate their solidarity for the women in Afghanistan, because they're much more vulnerable than any part of society. For 20 years, they scrambled for work and education till they could, if not equal themselves with the women of the world, they could prove their capabilities. But since the Taliban have come, all the women are home now. And the small number of women that are working are under serious threats. Any moment, anything can happen. Zahra was born in the beautiful city of Isfahan, Iran, and she studied genetics at Faravar University and was interested in the study of medical science. So because it wasn't possible for Afghan refugees to study medicine in Iran, she came to Kabul to start medical university because she was interested. And she had to do her work in a beauty clinic because she didn't have money. She was doing both, studying and working. And that is seeing the faces and seeing this, reading the sad stories. Now she herself is facing all that. And I lived the days that I may never thought to face. I was expecting to realize all my dreams in my own country. But regrettably, everything is devastated now. So this is what women in Afghanistan are doing. But we also hear that women in Afghanistan, when we get stories of women of Afghanistan are fighting back. And as they fight back, they get beaten up. They may even get killed. And yet they continue to protest. And I think that is, I'll end now. I'll just say that I'm sorry I took a little more time, but it's just
That's all right.
that I wanted to be, to show what the Afghan women at present now are facing and how they want to change it. And I think I really want to thank you all for bringing this to light and for people to understand what situation is and not just read something in the paper and think this is just statistics, this is just something that happened. Thank you.
Yes, we have actually, we have run out of time, a bit back, I think. I think we have 2 minutes only for one question, maybe whoever wants to take that question. Because we have run out of time, we have a creative contest that is taking place starting at 3. So we are going there. So just this open question to you all. What is the international community's responsibility to sort of, how do they come to aid to the artists, especially women artists in Afghanistan? I would start with perhaps Madame France or Kubra or whoever wants to take that. Yeah.
Well, the responsibility of the society as a whole has been very poor. Why? Because all was organized by the supposed biggest democracy in the world. And we were all caught in that process. That means we are, as a European democracy, we are also part of NATO. So all the negotiations were between the biggest democracy in the world and the Taliban. Nobody was, even the government of Kabul was not in the process. So we were in front of a fait accompli. And when Kabul was in the hands of the new regime, we were not able to do anything because everything was already packed by the biggest democracy. And because we were part of NATO, and this was a military operation, then we were blocked, and we are still, for the moment, blocked. I mean, we know that, for example, there were Afghan people who were evacuated by the US at the beginning, but they are not in the US. They are somewhere in Germany in camps. Then we know that the other people were evacuated, okay, but they're not. They are, for example, staying in Kiev, because it was, it's all kind of difficult situation for the Afghan people, but also for us who belong to supposedly democracy, because there's nothing democratic in this way of behaving. And it is not the first time, and I don't know how, because it's a very intricate problem where armed dealers and you name it are involved in it. So it's not a desperate, because the civil society is there, and we will not put the hands down. I mean, we have to continue our fight as people like Khushi was saying, like Kubra was saying. It is, of course, the women which are in the front, in the forefront, but we have to be with them also. This is the only thing I can say, unfortunately.
Thank you so much, Madame France Marquet, Ms. Khushi Kabir, and the artist Kubra Khademi. We can't take any more questions because we have run out of time already. But the fact that South Asia Foundation has this involvement in Afghanistan, and we had you here, it's such an honor for us all, and particularly for me, who has been benefited by the South Asia Foundation scholarship directly. I did my PhD at UMIKS Srinagar, which is part of Kashmir University. And I mean, my education has been taken care of by South Asia Foundation. So I really, really thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, France Marquet, Kubra Khademi, and Khushi Kabir, madam, for such stimulating discussion. We have come to the end of our panel.